Welcome to a look on the plus side. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys so much for being with us. We appreciate you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. It's called the Park Adventurers Club, and we have a ton of content we'll tell you about at the end. But tonight's mission is that we are going to be talking about the 2005 Fantastic Four. And you know what? When I think of fantastic people, I think of this fella right here. It's Charlie.
Hey, sorry, my microphone fell off. Hey,
how's it going?
How you doing? Good. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's funny. I reached out to you and I said, hey, man, let's do a show. Let's do a review. And you and I did Zorro back in the day, and you like shocked the heck out of me by when I cut away, you put on a Zorro mask and came in, and I'll never forget that. It was chef's kiss. It was fantastic. But when I reached out to you and was like, hey, can we do something? And I was like, I gave you kind of some options, and I was like, I really wanted to do the Fantastic Four from 2005 because it's very divisive. A lot of people are like, I hate this movie. It's the worst, or I like it, or it's campy, or whatever. And because of the new 2025 Fantastic Four, I was like, let's talk about it. You're like, dude, I've been researching this. Tell me your history with the 2005 movie.
So this was, I saw it when it came out. This was actually the first film that I remember taking note of people being upset online about something, that Jessica Alba was cast as Sue Storm, who was, historically very, very white and blonde. And then they cast this Mexican actress, and everybody online was upset. And I was like, why? I read it in the Hollywood Reporter, and I had to go and like search it out online to find the people were arguing about this. But I was just like flabbergasted that people would spend their time arguing online. Granted, this was 2005, so it was still kind of early days of all this. But this is the first thing I remember. And I remember they had an interview with people who were saying they're not going to see it. They're going to boycott the film. And it's like, why? You still get to look at Jessica Alba. I was like 15 at the time. So like you still, or I guess I would have been 13 when they were casting. So like you still get to look at Jessica Alba in a skin tight Fantastic Four outfit. So as a 13-year-old boy, there's nothing in the world that I liked more than doing that. So like, of course I'm going to go see the film. And I loved it. Like it was goofy. It was dumb. There's more plot holes than Swiss cheese, but it's fun, and it's a very pure expression of comic book films at that time.
Well, that's a lot to take in, my friend. I don't know that I knew that was a problem, honestly, but you know, maybe I just wasn't keeping up with all of the internet hate. That was probably the invention of internet hate, obviously.
I think
before
it was
time,
the first time I heard of it.
Yeah, nobody had ever actually hated anything on the internet ever. I remember Jessica Alba, just to sidetrack onto Jessica Alba, I remember her from this, James Cameron's Dark Angel TV series. That was the first time I had ever heard of her. And then she, of course, was cast in several other little things. But Sue Storm felt like a big breakout role for her. Interesting. Then ever since then, people have complained about stuff on the internet. Who knew it started with Fantastic Four?
That's it. Fantastic Four is the reason we have that problem.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the what I like to call the stats of this movie. I've got this feature, the stat board. Let's put it up. Let's talk about the numbers. The runtime for this thing is 2 hours and 5 minutes. Came out July 8th, 2005. Now, we're about 20 years later on this, which is mind-blowing. It was PG-13. It made $334 million. I rounded up just a little bit. I think the internet says 333.5, but we'll call it 334. Cost about $100 million to make and was a 20th Century Fox production, which was a big deal because when Disney bought Marvel, there was a whole bunch of stuff that Marvel, to survive, had sold off the rights to. Obviously, we know Spider-Man was sold to Sony. And 20th Century Fox had the rights to the Mutants, X-Men, New Mutants, all that, and the Fantastic Four. So when Disney was like, okay, we're going to start, they saw the response for Iron Man that I think was Paramount, and for Thor and all these other things. They're like, we're going to buy this company and we want all these other movies back. And so eventually they just happened to buy 20th Century Fox before they opened up Disney Plus, and they brought the first family, Marvel's first family, back into the fold, which I love. I want. Secretly, I want Disney to own everything. I know you and I could probably talk hours about that being a bad idea,
Yeah,
but
that's a separate podcast.
yeah, that's a separate thing we could talk about. But honestly, when they did, I was like, well, good. Now we can incorporate them into this world. So, when I'm watching this, one of the things I noticed instantly is a producer listing was Kevin Feige. So he was involved with this 2005 version, and then he obviously is the man right now. So he gets to bring his babies back into the MCU.
Yeah.
But before that, 1994. And again, I know you've probably looked into this. In 1994, I remember this. I was in a comic book shop, and they had signed autographs from the people, or like photos. Signed autographs is redundant, but like signed photos of the people who were in the 1994 Fantastic Four, the unreleased. And in
Roger
researching this,
Corman
I
one.
learned stuff that I didn't know. Partially, what I learned was that they filmed this movie to keep the rights. They didn't intend to release this movie. They filmed it to keep the rights. And I assumed you looked into that as well. When you go back and look at it, it looks like the worst comic book movie you've ever seen. The effects are weird. Like the Johnny Storm stuff is like literally a cartoon.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can do you one better on this one. My dad's best friend was the first AD on that film. So
are
I
you
got to
serious?
go down to the set when I was a kid, and we have pictures of me with Sue Storm and the thing. I should have dug him out for this. I can't believe I didn't dig him out. Yeah. So we have pictures of me with the thing and all of this, and like I've got a lot of stories that my dad's best friend has passed on to us about the filming of that with Corman and the actors and how terrible everything was, like, and everyone in the crew who wasn't like a day player kind of knew it wasn't going to get released because they put the whole thing together, like the script, the cast, the crew, everything came together like over lunch. Like it was so fast because they just had to put something out, and the bare minimum was you need to create like 200 cassette tapes or something like that counts as a release. So they created 200 cassette tapes of this, and then they destroyed them, except some of them didn't get destroyed. So I've got a
Yeah.
copy. I don't have the
Ooh.
cassette, but I have a DVD copy of it because it gets passed around at Comic Cons and stuff. And it's awful. It's just awful.
Well, if you pull it up on IMDb, there's a trailer for
Oh,
it,
do they have
and
the
yeah,
trailer?
it's just, oh my gosh, every
Yeah.
effect is horrible. I don't want to get dinged, but every effect is so bad. Like the animation is bad, the credits are bad. There's a scene with
Yeah.
them like walking out of what looks like a church in Mexico, and they're full like gear.
Hmm.
I mean, it's not good. It's not good, Charlie. It's
Yeah.
not good. But again, I didn't know it was, I assumed that what happened, this was in my head. This is what I thought, is that they released this movie, or they made this movie, and then somebody was like, no, like Marvel or somebody was like, no, this is not good enough to release. We're going to have someone else do a movie. And then 20th Century Fox did. But that's not what happened. The movie company that had the rights to it needed to make something, and they hadn't made it yet. And so to secure or to keep the rights, they made this trash. And no
Yep.
offense to your uncle or your family
No, he
friend, the
knew.
AD,
He
or
was
yeah.
he was paid well, and it was a job, but like everyone knew on set, and he said particularly there was one actor, and I won't say which one it was, but one actor was like, well, what's the motivation for this line? Like, why would I be saying this? And he said over the megaphone, your motivation is you're being paid. We have to go home, say the line,
I
because
can guess the
everyone
one.
knew. Yeah, like we know who it is. Um, Everyone except for the cast, I guess, was like aware that we're making this because it's cheaper to produce this film than it is to repurchase the rights at $2 million. So they put like $100,000 or something into the making of the film, and it shows. And like this is of the era of this is the early '90s. So like Power Rangers, like this is
It
worse than
feels like,
Power Rangers.
yeah,
You
yeah, it
know,
feels like
like
that. You're right.
Yeah, it was just, how do we secure the rights for another 10 years without paying to secure the rights for another 10 years?
Yeah, it was bad. But again,
Still worth a watch.
yeah, I'm sure, and I have never, but there's a lot of those old movies that were made for TV movies. There was a Captain America, there was a Doctor Strange, there were several Spider-Man movies there was no continuity between one and the other. The actors were different from one to the other. But I still I took whatever I could get back in the day because it was before there were superhero movies everywhere, and so.
Yeah.
I actually have a copy of that Captain America and that
Oh, no
Doctor
way.
Strange movie, just because I long for that almost campiness. Like I was of the era. I wasn't during the live showing of Adam West, but I was of the era of the reruns of the
Yeah.
Batman TV show where Adam West was Batman. And I loved it. It wasn't campy to me. It was, these are superheroes. This is comic books come to life. We have such high
Yeah.
expectations now, though, and maybe as we roll into what we're talking about here is 2005's Fantastic Four. I think maybe that we have higher expectations of what a comic book movie should be. That said, we'll talk about by the end of this, like if it deserves the harsh criticisms, aside from the Jessica Alba thing, the harsh criticisms
Yeah.
that it had. So let's take a look at this version of the Fantastic Four. Here's our crew. Here's our fellas. So yeah, you're right. Like Jessica Alba was killing it in that outfit, and they kind of pushed that. Like they pushed
Oh,
her.
absolutely.
Yeah, like her. I'm gonna go ahead and say her sexuality throughout the thing, from the relationship with her and Reed, where she shows up in the costume, and then Reed's like enamored with the material and not with her, or the part where she has to take off all her clothes for no particular reason, which we'll talk about that in a second.
There's a
But
reason.
then,
It's for the trailer. There's a reason.
okay, all right. Well, you may have the answer for me then. I will love that. But I mean, the same could be said of Chris Evans in this movie. He is definitely, eye candy in this movie. He is buff, cut, young, perfect teeth, the whole deal. And so I feel like that they did a good job casting this movie on a whole. And the Thing doesn't look as ridiculous as the Thing from the 1994, but there's definitely been an evolution of the Thing. So here's the 1994, here's the 2005, here's the 2015, and then here's the 2025.
I feel like it's almost come more cyclical, like with the eyebrow ridges and stuff. It's kind of gone a little more Corman style, I mean, granted, that's more of a time in the comics. They're going for what he looked like in the comics in the early days. So I get it, and everything is 60s oriented and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they went for it, but I think Corman went more for that stylized look too, where he does look more like a Thing and less like Michael Chiklis in makeup.
Well, but again, the 1994 was horrible. The Michael Chiklis one I could buy, and then like when he like touches himself and you hear the rock sound, like that was pretty
Nice
pretty
little
well done.
touches.
I feel like,
Yeah.
But that was the last time it was done practically, because in the 2015 and in the 2025, it's not done practically anymore. Correct? I mean, we know the 2015 was
Is
CGI.
2025 not practical?
Is it?
I haven't seen it yet.
I
so
don't think it is.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's not out yet, but I haven't seen it. I think that it probably is CGI.
Okay. Well, I mean,
So-
it looks good enough.
Yeah,
But,
no,
you
the
know,
whole
it's-
yeah, I think they did a good job.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good for this one, and I like the character style that you can still get what's his name emoting through the rock, which you didn't, even with the digital one for 2015, you didn't really get much. Like, he was so rocky, there was no expression from
Yeah.
anything. And the same thing with the first one, but Chiklis, with the way those prosthetics moved, he could emote a lot. Like, he still did a great job acting through all of that stuff.
Yes, agree. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that he did a good job in it, and I feel like, and let's talk about the cast. I feel like this one, the casting was, to me, the best casting, and maybe it's just because this was like my first real Fantastic Four movie, but the casting in this one was on the money. Like, I feel like that Jessica Alba was a great Sue Storm, that Chris Evans was a great Johnny Storm. I pronounce for me Reed Richards' name because I don't know it. How to pronounce it?
Ioan Gruffid.
Ioan Gruffid. I know him
Yep.
when I see him, but I don't. I certainly look at that name and go, it looks like Lone Gruffid because it looks like it's not
Yeah.
an I, but
Yeah,
it's
it does.
obviously an I. So he's the only weaker link for me, and I think part of the problem is he's maybe he's a little bit. I don't know if he's not as like. I don't know. It feels like he's not as stoic in some way as I feel like Reed Richards. I love the John Krasinski one that they killed
Yeah,
off in
I
8 seconds. That one I thought was a
yeah,
good one.
that one bothered me because
Oh
also
yeah,
I think Emily Blunt would be a great Sue Storm. So that, I mean, that writes itself, and that's what everybody on the internet was saying. Like, why not just give us what we want?
right.
We know
Yeah,
Disney isn't afraid to pander to the fans, Star Wars 9. So just give us what we want, just a little bit, like use the same script, just give us the casting we want.
yeah. So when you say you're upset, you weren't upset that they put Krasinski in. You were upset that they killed him off and that it
But
was
they
like
killed
this
him
kind
off
of
so
like a
early.
MacGuffin sort of a
It
situation. And
was like the way they killed him off was so great that it was like, all right, that was a really cool moment where he like spaghettify him. That was a really cool kill for the horror movie of Marvel. So I'm glad with what happened and how it happened. I just wish they would have, it's the multiverse. You can just bring him back as a different variant. And I like Pedro Pascal well enough, but I think John Krasinski is, or you know, Cillian Murphy would do a good job. Like everyone was calling for him to be Doctor Doom, but like if you don't want to use him as Doctor Doom because we need to have Downey, then just put him in. He would be a great Mr. Fantastic as well. Um,
yeah.
yeah, there you go. Like that's my choice would be John Krasinski as Reed Richards, but I don't think like Johan Grufford did a better job, I think, than Miles Teller did.
Oh,
And to be honest, I think he fits Johan Grufford fits a little bit more with his like goofiness and aloofness than Pedro Pascal, because like Pedro Pascal is such a good looking, confident guy. That's not someone who's been locked in a lab for 10 years. Like you can absolutely see how Johan Grufford could be like completely
yeah.
alone and his only friend is Ben Grimm. Like that kind of tracks. I don't get that from Pedro Pascal. He's just too good looking and too charming.
Well, I think the rest of the casting is perfect. The other thing I think it could be bothering me is that he is from Wales and he has an accent that he's busy covering up in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder if that is what kind of throws him off for me a little bit too. It's not the worst. It's not the worst,
Yeah,
but he is out of the four of them to me the weak link of the rest of them. Ben Grimm, Michael Chiklis was I think a great choice there.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, the rest of it seems and even Julian McMahon, who just recently passed away, the man who played Doctor Doom, he passed away on I think July 4th. From a battle with cancer, which, by the way, I just read that he was not the original choice, that at some point they had Nick Cage in mind, which would have been, to me, sort of a nightmare. Why do you put Nick Cage in
Yeah.
everything? Why was he going to be Superman? Why was he going to be... But, not that I have a problem with him, but I do think that Julian McMahon did a great job as Doctor Doom, from the kind of like the pretty boy, like arrogant
Yeah.
entrepreneur guy to the devious dark turn that he took. So I mean, I'm really
He did a good
I
job
like that.
with the arc. He did a good job with the arc, but I don't like none of these movies have ever done justice to Doctor Doom. Like Doctor Doom, like they talked about Thanos being like the big threat in Marvel, and then uh like he ended up being really intense and a great villain because they gave him a lot of time. Like in the comics, he's not that big of a threat really. He's just kind of a brawler. Like
Yeah.
the biggest threat in the Marvel universe, I think, and this is again an entirely other podcast episode. I think Doctor Doom is the biggest threat. So they can't ever actually do him justice in a movie, because then everything else is going to pale in comparison. Like Doctor Doom is so powerful and so menacing and so good, and in almost every circumstance he is right and he knows it. And like, you can't have someone like that and then just make other movies. Like, he doesn't get defeated, he chooses to go back to Latveria. Like, that's what he does. Like,
Yeah.
Doctor Doom and Ultron are like the two most powerful. So I don't like his character, but I like what Julian McMahon did with it. And I think if he was given license to do a real Doctor Doom, he would be a really good one.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, I think that overall the cast was well put together for this one, and to me makes more sense. Let's man, there was something that you just said, and I was going to go off on a complete tangent about it. But let's
Doctor Doom.
No, we're fine.
Robert Downey.
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey's going to be the first good Doctor Doom character, I think.
You
Because
think?
they're giving him, they're giving him his character the time and space to be evil, to be menacing. Like, it's not even a matter of like Robert Downey can do it well. It's that I think Marvel is giving him, he's going to be the big bad. So they're giving him 2 movies to show how big and bad he can be. And I think that's going to be the first proper treatment of Doctor Doom.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down for it. It's just so weird. As San Diego Comic-Con is coming up, it was a year ago that I was at the San Diego Comic-Con in the Hall H line outside the building because the line got cut off when he was announced. I was like, could throw a rock at the hall from where I was, and didn't get to be inside and had to read it on my phone, being that close that he had gotten picked for this role. So
that sucks.
Yeah, I know. So let's get into that's the cast of this movie. But let's get into the fact that, when it starts out, there are so many things in this movie that are comic booky teases. Like, I almost feel like if you ever saw the first Hulk movie, the Ang Lee Hulk movie, which everybody hated. Yeah, it was definitely very comic booky because they use comic book cell things in the directing and all that. But this one, I feel like the way it was written feels a little more comic booky, in the fact that there are all of these inside jokes and hints and foreshadowing that are like riddled throughout this movie. And it starts out strong, like right from the beginning, when they're working, like they first open up and they're working on the statue of Victor Von Doom, and it's basically, when they see it up close, it looks like they're building Doctor Doom up close when you first see it. And so it's like this, like, it's a red herring. It's not him yet. We're not there yet. It's just like, it's a misdirect. And then they said something about Reed, about he's always stretching. Like, that's a stretch, before he's actually turned. And then they talk about, I think that the thing is something about, like, he has tough skin, but when he's still Ben Grimm, and so there are all these little things that they do to hint around and foreshadow that you would see in a comic book, I feel like.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of little nods and references and stuff, and I think that because Fantastic Four is so well known, they can do that because we get it. Like, there are a lot of things in Marvel movies now where it's like, I have to go online and read what was that reference. I have no idea. Like, I didn't grow up reading, Nova and the Nova Corps, so like, I didn't get any of this.
Right.
So this one is so well known.
So that leads me back to the thing I was thinking of. I've remembered it now. You're welcome. When it comes to these comic book movies, because a lot of them are remakes, right? It's a reboot. We're rebooting this. We just rebooted Superman, right? So when you're watching these movies, do you prefer when we start after the origin, or do you prefer when we start with the origin has already happened? Because if you, like, when you think about it, like the Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland, You didn't go back and we didn't redo it. We did it with Andrew Garfield. We did it with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
But when we went to the Tom Holland one, they were like, you know what? People know this story. We don't need to go back and retell it. We can use some exposition, but we're not
Yeah.
going to retell that story. With the Fantastic Four, with the two movies we've seen so far in the theater, the 2005 and the 2015, we've seen the origin both times. Now we're not going to. I don't think. Are
we
we?
need it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we need it. I think
But do you
Fantastic
prefer
Four,
that? Do you prefer
No,
that they
I
start with the origin
mean,
now?
no, I read enough comics and I don't care if anyone is following. I'm following, and that's who the movie is made for, is just me. But like, also, you're not gonna line up and go see Batman in the first like 2 weeks unless you know who Batman is. If this is like your first week on the planet and you don't know who Batman is and you've never heard the origin story, you're probably not going to, be really excited to go and see it because it's really high concept and weird. If you know who he is, then you'll go see it. But if you know who he is, he's a guy who his parents were killed, so he dresses like a bat. That's it. It's a one-liner, and we got it. Superman, the same thing. He's the last son of Krypton, came to Earth. Now he's an alien superhero. Easy peasy. Like, there are some superheroes who we don't need the origin story of anymore. Spider-Man among them. I think that Fantastic Four as well. But like Iron Man, I don't think a lot of people outside of comic book people knew his origin story and how he built that first set of armor and how he went from military industrialist to peacekeeper. So there are characters who need it and there are characters who don't. But I think Fantastic Four is one of the few in Marvel that don't need any further explanation. So we're okay. But like a lot of the stuff they have planned coming up, you probably need a little bit of exposition on, because they're starting to scrape towards the bottom of the barrel now. So like, you don't know how Richard Rider, the kid from New York, becomes Nova. We need like a half hour to see that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I do like how they introduce the characters like they did with Civil War. They introduced Black Panther. They introduce, Spider-Man. They introduce these characters within another movie. Now I'm like, okay, you've introduced them. So when we see their feature movie, we don't need to hear their backstory. Same thing kind of just happened with Ironheart, is that like, Riri Williams was kind of introduced to us in Wakanda Forever. So when we do this series, we don't need to go back to her origins of why she has the suit. But again, I think that the point is, when we have a movie like Spider-Man that's been redone 3 times, the Fantastic Four that is on a every 10-year schedule, if you've noticed, because it was 1994, so almost 1995, 2005, 2015, and 2025. So let's reboot this thing every 10 years. We probably don't need to go back and do an origin story about them. But something like, even with Ant-Man, we didn't start with Hank Pym's Ant-Man. We started with Scott Lang's, and then we kind of throw back to Hank Pym's. That was an interesting take, I feel like. So
that also got me, though, because I love Hank Pym, and I think without understanding who Hank Pym was, the impact of Scott Lang is less so, because, like, he's a criminal, but he's a good guy, versus Hank Pym is like, he's a good guy, but also he's kind of a criminal half the time. Like, he's mentally unstable, and every once in a while he's just like, fuck it, I'm Yellow Jacket now. I'm going to start murdering people. And like, so they were an interesting juxtaposition, but you don't see that if we don't have Hank Pym. So that was a bridge too far. Anyway, I digress.
All right, so let's talk about this one then. We start out with the origin story, obviously. We learn that Reed needs money. He's trying to get this research done that he's going to change the world with, because that's the kind of guy he is. And he and Ben go and meet with Victor, old college rival, and apparently also a rival for Sue's affections. And so when we meet them, there is some history that we don't know about. The whole Sue and Reed thing was a thing, and then it broke up. We didn't have to live through that too. So we're through exposition, we're learning about their history, and that now that Johnny and Sue work for Victor, and then they go into business together with Victor to go up into space to do some testing because of the solar storm that's coming, and then bad things happen, and they seemingly just wake up in this like health compound of Victor's that he just happens to have, which was a little weird for me. So we don't know how they get back down to Earth, and we don't know anything like that. We just know that they wake up, and again, they do it again. They misdirect because we think at this point that Ben Grimm has become the thing, because of the way Johnny Storm's like, they did everything they could. They, he's messing with him. And I love that he messes with him this whole time, that's the kind of guy he is, which again, I don't know that anybody's going to talk me out of Chris Evans being the best Johnny Storm. I don't know. Like, maybe this new guy will be good.
I think he was.
Yeah.
I think the new guy will be good too, but I think Chris Evans did the quintessential Johnny Storm.
And killed it as Captain America. The part where he goes and he's hitting on the nurse, and he's like, he puts the thermometer back. He goes, "This is yours," and he kisses her and goes, "That's mine." I'm like,
That's the most confident man in the world.
Exactly. Exactly. But anyway, so they're back on Earth, and they haven't turned yet, which I thought was interesting. Like, their powers haven't begun to show yet. And as the powers start to show, I'm like, this really does look like a 2005 version of what those effects would look like. Some of the Reed Richards stuff with him stretching was a stretch. Some of the stuff with Sue disappearing was the only stuff that I think looked pretty good was Johnny Storm. The part where Chiklis turns, like, Ben Grimm turns into him, and he's like under the covers, like he decides to get under the covers to, like, transform so that they can keep that reveal for a while. That seemed a little bit silly, but I don't know. How did you feel like the effects stood up as you've watched this 20 years later?
They're fine. It is very much of the time. But even now, if you're doing full body replacements, it always looks a little uncanny valley. So doing Johnny Storm when he's like doing the fire and stuff on his fingers is so perfect. But then when it's a full body burn, it's like, all right, that looks like a digital maquette. It's hit and miss. It's good enough, I think. If you choose to suspend your disbelief, it's good enough to get through the film.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that happens in here is this thing where Reed puts his fingers under the door. And obviously, once we go down here, this is all just CGI. We're not even pretending anymore. But I almost hate the fact that they go out of their way to make there be reasons for him to stretch. I feel like it's the dumbest of all of the powers. Like, hers, not only is she invisible, but she can throw force fields, which has unlimited opportunities. And Johnny can fly and shoot fire. And Ben is like basically invincible and extremely strong. And Reed can stretch. And it's just like, I feel like they went out of their way to show how that can come into play, for him to catch the wine bottle, for him to put his hands under the door, for him to wrap Ben up tightly so that he can calm down like some kind of a swaddle. Like, that bothered me. It seemed like you didn't need to do that. So obviously his other superpower is he's the smart one. He's the genius that comes up with all of this stuff. But the stretching, I don't know. What do you like? Am I wrong?
No, I agree. I think him stretching is even in the comic books, it's like he does it more just to balance out other people, and like working for a team. It's like, all right, hold him down so that Ben can punch him or whatever. He's the one who wraps him up like a snake or something. But his power is his mind, and that's like even in the comics, there's another like alternate version of Reed Richards who has the powers, but he just never uses them. Like he's just chooses to live his life as a regular, smartest individual on the planet, but doesn't. I don't think he's ever stretched, even though he has the ability to. I think the only time he stretches is like to avoid an incoming bullet or something. Like it's kind of useless. His superpower is that he's the smartest person in the multiverse. And you don't really need much more than that.
Yeah. No, I guess you're right. So here's the scene. Okay.
Yeah.
I do like the fact they went out of their way when she's invisible to show the tag in her shirts. Like they do that
Hmm.
multiple times. There's one time where I actually paused and I was like, "Does that say Benetton?" Like I'm trying to place this in 2005. Like, is that a thing? Like, but it didn't. But I do think that at least that aspect of it was pretty well done. But yeah, the stretching for me, I
Yeah,
just kept thinking you're going out of your way to do this superpower that is kind of the lamest of all the powers on the table.
feels like
But
a
yeah,
bit of a
his
stretch.
but then of course they bring in the candy. They bring
There it is. Yep.
he doesn't need to be running in wrapped in her jacket, but he's like, I can explain.
Well,
Um,
he burned off all his clothes. He has to.
sure, he got that far without somebody giving him a lab coat or anything else. Yeah, I don't know. But and then Victor has the best powers of all because he's becoming strong and he can pull power and I don't know. It's an interesting balance, but I think that's kind of weak. Um, so then there we kind of go back and forth on this thing between them discovering their powers they're always fighting with each other. I don't know that we're going to see that in the 2025 version, but they're always fighting with each other. It's either and they do this in the sequel. It's like Ben and Johnny are always at each other's throats, and Sue still has like she can't accept for Reed for who he is because she knows that he doesn't take the leap and do things. And in the second one, it's all he's a workaholic and he can't get out of his head. But so there's a lot of this movie that's not really story. It's just them, their
Hmm.
relationships and the
Fighting.
bickering back and forth and the fighting and and how they turn Ben against, how Victor turns Ben against them so that he can isolate Ben so that Ben can, lose his power. But that almost feels like it's an insult that he's been played by Victor. Like maybe that shows that he's
Hmm.
maybe not as smart as the rest of them because he's been played so easily by Victor. Let's talk about his girlfriend that drove me nuts. Like his first girlfriend,
Deb or Alicia?
Debbie. So the fact that he like decides he has no plan, but he's gonna go see her, and he calls her, and then she comes out, and like within 8 seconds, she doesn't have any questions other than "You're a monster. We're over." Like it doesn't.
Hmm.
I don't know. It seems like that was a little bit of a weak relationship, but also it's sort of a weak relationship of how he gets with Alicia. But you're happy that he does. You're happy that he finds someone that can accept him for who he is, and that's a good journey. And that's Kerry Washington, who I didn't mention before. I don't think in the casting. Maybe one of the first things I remember seeing her in, and then she became
Yeah.
Olivia Pope on Scandal, and she was everywhere. So
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I think it was like this is the direction that the character needs to go to set up what we want to do. So just do it. And like the motivation is the script said to do it. And I think that's inherent in a lot of these early films before Iron Man. There's a lot of like, well, this is just where we need to be, so we will, and that's
yeah.
it. And like you can say the same thing about a lot of Spider-Man stuff. Even as good as that was, there was still a lot of like, it just happens. Things just happen.
Well, and the middle of the movie, which is the majority of the stuff that happens on the bridge, is all sort of Ben's fault, and yet it all gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and he's going to try to stop this guy from jumping off the bridge, but then the guy gets scared of him and he can't, so he continues to push towards him, which then makes the guy fall, which then there are crashes, which then he has to cause more crashes, which then cause more, and then it's just all of the things that happen, they're considered to be the heroes, but they're literally the ones that caused every bit of this devastation.
Mm-hmm.
Like that had hit me watching this time more than ever before. Is that it's like, like it almost makes me frustrated at them the same way I'm frustrated with Star Lord for not going with the plan to get Thanos's
Yeah.
the glove off. Like it's the same thing, the gauntlet.
Yeah.
They ruined this whole thing. Like they are the ones that put everybody in peril, so they're not the heroes, they're kind of the villains here.
Yeah. And that's also like so many times of like, and this movie as well, the villain has a problem with the hero, and they're going to attack the hero, and all of this devastation and destruction happens. And it's like, if you just go to like Tucson, there would be no reason for a fight. We're not going to have any property damage. No one's house is going to get blown up if you guys would just vacate. And like, how many times like Captain America is going to fall down on a grenade for everybody or whatever. Like, it's always about like, I'm going to make the self-sacrificing play, but like, you're not going to move. And
Yeah.
like, Loki is trying to take over Earth, so he's going to do that whether they're there or not. They have to be there to stop him. That's not their fault. They are heroes. But like, so many times it's, oh, we're going to fight this hero, like we have to take out the Batman, so we're going to destroy all of this. But like, if you look at I think the better films, the Batman Begins or No Way Home or any of these things, it's like, we have to find a way. If it's a one-on-one beef, we have to localize it so no one gets hurt. Or if it's a worldwide beef or citywide beef, we have to stop them where they are. But
Yeah.
in the early days, it was just like, oh, I don't like Professor X, so like, let's destroy half the city to have this really epic end-all fight. And like, no one's thinking about it in that way at that time. I think this was still early days of superhero films.
Well, and again, there's a lot of this movie that's just for fun. This is indicative of that. When the fire truck's coming down and the dog, the dog, like covers his eyes, I'm like, that's a gag. There's so many gags in this movie, and a lot of them have to do with the way they use the powers. A lot of them have to do with their relationship to each other. But that's a gag that we see in this movie, is the dog covering his eyes at the last second because of that. So it makes it. I don't know if it makes it more comic booky or it makes it cheesy and campy. What does that make it, Charlie? What does it?
I think it makes it campy, but like, that's also, I think,
fun?
what it was at the time. Yeah, like that was what superhero films were at the time. Like, I think Deadpool and Wolverine did a really nice job of encapsulating all that goofy campiness and paying reverence to it, where it's like, you could just make fun of it, but they were doing it with such a reverent tone, because that's like, for me, that's what I grew up on. Those were
Yeah.
my first superhero movies, like, so of course that shapes who I am as a person and every thought that I've had since. It was such a big part of my growing up. So I
Yeah.
like it because I was exposed to it. I'm sure looking back on it, I would probably be less kind if I grew up with, Iron Man first. I would probably be a little less kind to it, but I grew up with like X-Men and Spider-Man first, so it's sweet. It's a sweet moment in time.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. You're right. You probably, it's kind of like one of those things where there was some cheesy things we love in Disney parks that our kids would be like, I don't get it, and it's just like,
Yeah,
because you weren't there from the beginning. But looking
Figment's not
back
that great. He's fine.
at looking back at Deadpool versus Wolverine, it was a love letter to 20th Century Fox superhero movies. Like, that's what that movie
Yeah,
really was, because of bringing in,
absolutely.
Chris Evans to be Johnny Storm again, or to bring in people from X-Men and Blade and Elektra and all that kind of stuff. So I loved that
Yeah,
that aspect of it, and yeah, I do think that was a thing. But like this one, like like you said, you said it brilliantly. Like it happens because it needs to happen to make the story happen. Like Deb being on the bridge, there's no reason. There's literally no
yeah,
reason on God's green earth that she should be on the bridge, or should have been able to fight her way to the front of the line to lock eyes with Ben, other than to put the ring down and say it's over.
yeah,
As a matter of fact, it was such a
yeah.
small moment. My wife was looking down at her phone while we were watching this and didn't see her put the ring down. Because, again, there's a gag of him trying to pick up the ring and he
Trying to
can't.
pick it up.
And there's so many gags with him breaking stuff and being too hard on stuff, or squeezing oranges, and like a bunch of gags. But in this particular case, she didn't see her put the ring down. And so when he's on the boat at the end and hooked up with Alicia, she's like, well, wait a minute, isn't he married? And I was like, no, they were engaged. And did you not see the part on the bridge? Did it happen too fast for you? Were you
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
There's a lot of stuff, like the thing that bothers me the most, and I
the
watched
thing.
this again. The thing that bothers me the most in this is one of those moments when they're locking Doctor Doom in the shipping container at the very end, and the guy's like, how long is it going to take? And he says about 12 weeks, and it's like labeled for Latveria, and they shut the doors, and then it pans out, and he's already on an ocean tanker. His assistant is already on the ocean tanker. Yeah, he just walks over. So his assistant didn't close up the box before they were already underway. Like, they're not pulling out of the harbor. They're in open ocean. And then he just walked away, and we don't see him, by the way. Like, he walks off screen right, and then we pan out, and he's just gone. And this box is in like a mid-level stack. Like, there's no thought to that continuity. Why do we need to see that? Like, can't we just, or just be like, okay, now he's shoving off and they're about to leave, but like, the assistant should absolutely stay in New York. He shouldn't have to sit with a container for 12 weeks while it's shipped to Latveria, which, by the way, is landlocked, so it's not going to be able to take a boat into a country. Like, it's I have a lot of problems. That one bothers me the most, but it's a lot of little things like that where it's like think, McFly, why do we have this shot? What are we doing?
No, you're right.
Because the script calls for it.
Well, and I will say that they tie it up at the very end for no particular reason with this bow of Johnny jumps up into the sky and paints the number 4 with fire that just happens to sit, and then we see the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Woof, cheesy. But, I mean,
you remember that shot in Spider-Man where he like swings onto the flagpole and he's right there and the 2 towers are behind him? Like,
Superman
that's
flying
America.
into
Spider-Man.
space and right into the camera and waving.
Just,
the Batman 1989 where the thing comes, like Batwing comes right up into the moon and then
into the moon and pauses for a second,
falls down. Yeah, I mean, you know what? While it's cheesy, I do kind of still love it. I don't know, it's a thing.
Yeah.
So let me pause here, Charlie, for a second, and I want to run some trivia questions by you. And I want to thank everybody who's watching. Thank you guys for watching, and we hope you are enjoying it. And you give us a like and give us some comments afterwards and tell us what you think of this Fantastic Four movie or the Fantastic Four in general. But this is the time where I like to just bring up some stuff I noticed and see if you noticed it too. And we call it trivia. I'm going to ask you these, and maybe you know them and maybe you don't. I feel like you're a very observant gentleman, so I feel like you'll probably have
think so.
Picked up on all this stuff. This is about things I've seen in the movie, by the way. This is not stuff that I just randomly like pulled the, who was the second AD on the movie or whatever. Don't tell me if you know. So here are the questions. I've got 5 for you. So the first one is, when we first meet Reed in Victor's office, he's calling him out on all of these things that you owe all this money on the Baxter building and you got turned down by NASA. And the reason you're coming to me is because you're bankrupt. So he throws a magazine down on the table and it has an article about Reed being bankrupt. What magazine was that?
Was it Time?
It was not.
What was it?
Wired. Do you remember Wired magazine?
Yeah, I know Wired.
So it was a tech story, and so it was Wired magazine. I don't know that I've laid hands on a magazine in a long time anyway, but I haven't seen Wired magazine in a while. I don't even know if it still exists, but I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. That's also of a time. Like Wizard magazine.
Okay, all right. So they're on the bridge, and Ben is causing all of this havoc, and for some strange reason they decide to send a fire engine, which I don't know if there had already been fire at that point or the fire was just happening then, but there was a fire engine. Do you know the number on that fire engine?
No.
Okay.
No, that's way too deep a cut.
It was 54, and it's just because we see it for so long because they spend so much time on it, getting it back on the bridge and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, I mean, there was always a chance that you might not know this. Stan Lee does a cameo in this, and Stan Lee was famous for doing cameos in the Marvel movies, and R.I.P. Stan Lee, we miss him. Disney legend, actually, which was pretty cool. I was in the room when he became a Disney legend at D23, and it felt very good to be in the room. I could barely make him out, but we were in the room together, so he probably knew I was there. In this, he plays a mailman. What is that mailman's name?
Hmm. It's with an L.
Has an L in it.
No, then I don't know.
It's Willie.
Willie. Okay,
Because
that
it
I
was
was not
so
going the
weird
right
to
direction.
me that Reed calls him. He's like, "Thanks, Willie," and I thought to myself, like, what? Why? Like, why? Why did we need to give Willie a like with Stanley's cameo a backstory? Like, Willie,
Yeah.
like, hey Willie, how's your kid in college? And it's like, so he. The funny thing is, he hands him a stack of like bills, and I was expecting to see something like they used to do in the Arrowverse, where they like would, hide, the different names. Who is the Blue
References
Beetle?
to it.
The Blue Beetle is.
Oh,
Korg, is it Korg? I don't know.
no, Eduardo or something, right?
No, no, not that one. The original Blue Beetle.
Oh, I don't
Anyway,
know.
it's like Court Industries or like Ted Court or something like that. Like that would be
Oh,
all over the place
yeah.
in the Arrow universe, like Court Tech or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my point in doing that is like I looked at it to see like if there was any like Pym Industries or something, and it was way before that. So there was no inside
Yeah.
scoop. Yeah. When they're in Victor's office, there is something behind Victor on the wall, behind his desk, on the wall. Huge. What is it?
Is it in my mind? It's that like the Metropolis thing, like the Art Deco art piece, but I'm sure it's not.
It's
That's
just a
just what I
big letter.
expect
It's
to
just
see
a
there.
big letter V, and it crushes
Oh,
him at some point. But it's just a big letter V. I didn't prepare you for this, but I don't know that
I'm
you
not
would have
as
been
observant as
prepared
I
for this
thought.
randomness that I have here. So I think the only other question that I had for you, and this one should be a little bit of a layup. So when they're in his office and you look out the window, obviously you see the Baxter building in the distance, but there's a building in
Hmm.
the foreground, a very tall building in the foreground you see outside the window. Do you know what building that is?
Is it Empire State Building?
That is correct. There we
That's
go.
the only tall building I know in New York.
By the
It's the
way, have
only
you
one that
I
exists.
assume you've done the Universal attraction, the Spider-Man attraction.
No, I've never been to Universal Florida.
Really? Oh, okay. So, well,
Mm-mm.
in that attraction, like, I don't think this is a spoiler for you, but if you look hard, you can see the Baxter Building in
Ah,
some of the animation, and it's very
that's
cool that you
cool.
can see it. Like you're so disoriented in it, like you've like trying like if like Forbidden Journey sort of a thing, like you're just looking
Hmm.
all around. That
Yeah,
you have to know where it is, and so I love the fact that the Baxter Building is in that
that's cool.
attraction. So yeah. Anyway, I appreciate you playing along. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I didn't get any of them.
My backup question was, what color motorcycle did Johnny Storm ride when he's riding out to the mission?
Yeah, when he's kissing the girl in the car. Red?
Yeah, it was red. There you go. There you go. See, you
Yeah.
knew
All
that one. I
right.
should have I should have
I
thrown that
got
one
one.
out instead of fire engine number 54. I should have done that one. Yeah, anyway, the so again, this movie is it was very divisive about people not loving the fact. I
Hmm.
don't know, like you mentioned the Jessica Alba thing, which was news to me, but I think in general I feel like they didn't think this was a strong portrayal of the Fantastic Four, short of what you said about Doctor Doom and being like, as a character he's normally very OP, very overpowered, but he's not in this one. He's downplayed a little
Hmm.
bit. Did you see anything else glaring that you would have been like, oh, that's probably why people picked this apart? Because it, like you said,
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of the movies of the time were this kind of movie. Why did they pick this one apart in particular?
I think it's the same reason why Lord of the Rings fans try and get pissed off that Tom Bombadil isn't in the film. And it's like, that's not he has nothing to do with the story. Like, it's an interesting little vignette, but it has nothing to do with the story. But there are so many people who live and breathe Lord of the Rings, and they want everything to be just so and just perfect. And I'm one of those Marvel fanboys. I read comic books every single day, and uh, I've actually been reading like Fantastic Four run, the Ryan North run on Fantastic Four, which is just spectacular. And I read a lot of Fantastic Four when I was a kid, so like I know these characters really well, and coming from that point of view, they didn't do justice to the characters. They're a this is like a bedtime story version of the characters where like everything is simplified and everything is easy. And I think they did that to distill it down for the wider audience because they like didn't want to get too comic booky, and that's a constant fear with the movies. Is like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man 2 got panned for being too comic booky, and it's like it's a comic book film. It's supposed to be comic booky. I really enjoyed it because it was closer to the comic books, and I'm really hoping that this new 2025 version is going to have more of the comic book influence with like they've got Herbie the robot and it's very 60s era flair and all that, and like bringing more of the wider um, Fantastic Four universe, because it's not just about four people who stretch, it's about the whole world that they inhabit. And like I think a lot of the problems that we've had with the MCU so far is because Reed Richards isn't there. Reed Richards is such a big part of the MCU, or the Marvel comic book universe, that like when you're trying to justify and explain how these things happen in the MCU and you don't have Reed Richards there, and we're like, well, just Iron Man, like that's not enough. It's not well balanced enough in the movies like it is in the comics. They can kind of bring out different aspects of different characters because you don't have to be all encompassing. And so with this, they went the opposite direction. They made him so limited and so basic and specific, and like all of them are just caricatures, with the exception of the Thing. I think I think this is the best version of the ever loving blue eyed Thing that we've ever had, and it hit perfectly because you can see both how he's a hero and he's loyal to his friend and all that, but he's also just some guy from Yancey Street who got swept up in all this craziness. He's not smart like Reed and Sue, and he's not um, you know dumb like Johnny, who's just going to run in face first into everything. He's kind of that tempering, like if you play D&D or any of those video games, like he is the tank. Like he's the one who kind of moves slow, holds everybody back, but he's like, let's not rush into things. Let's think about this. Let's do it right. He's the rock, for lack of a better term, that holds the Fantastic Four together. And I really got that from not only Chiklis's portrayal, but also how it was written. I think
Yeah.
he was a great version, but I think all the other characters were caricatures of themselves in the comic books. And just from the little bits that I've seen in the trailers and stuff for Fantastic Four, it seems like they're doing Johnny a little bit better this time around. He's a little more, not dumb. He's just a little more hot-headed. Like that's it. Because Chris Evans definitely played it unintelligent, and I think that did a disservice to him. And Vanessa Kirby looks like she could actually be a doctor the way Sue Storm is, and I think this one will be a little bit better.
Okay.
That was a really
All right.
long-winded answer.
No. I'm interested. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're talking about it. But I am looking forward to seeing what they do. It looks like, based on the trailer, that they're not going to go back and redo the origin. They'll probably explain it through exposition or through flashbacks or newsreels or something. And then how this leads to them being part of the MCU, I'm sure they get chased out of their universe, I would assume.
Out of their universe.
But you're right in the fact that, and I hadn't thought about that before, is as I was reading comic books as a kid and later as a teen and later as I've read a lot of comic books. It's been a while since I've read some comic books because I have comic book movies now and I watch a lot. But I do need to get back to that. I do love the Marvel app. So I do pay for that. I do pay for that app, and I need to get back into it. But the fact that when Spider-Man needed to get out of a jam, he would always go to Reed, not to Tony Stark. That wasn't how that worked in the comic books. So you're right. I do see what you're saying there. One of the things that I love about going back to a movie, especially something that's about 20 years old like this one is to go back and see the ads that are in here. They went this is where he went to the X Games, and you look at the background. I'm like, oh, does that still exist? Like I see Under Armour and I see Sobe and I see Pepsi, and there's a Burger King ad that he puts on fire and all that kind of stuff. And so it's in a moment in time. But there's a moment in time earlier where Chris Evans as Johnny Storm references a TV commercial that I wonder, did you get the joke when he referenced it? When he takes the picture of Ben Grimm with the digital camera and he goes, digital camera. Yeah. So you did get that joke.
$254. Yeah. I got that reference.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that reference because that was so much a parlance of that was a parlance of our times. Like that's what everybody said. I didn't even think about that as being a reference. That's just what people said.
But when I hear that, like in my head, I'm thinking, would my kids know that? Like my kids may know that. I don't know. But like that whole, that bit about priceless, it was such a meme of that time before memes were a thing. That was a meme of the time. Like the was up. I mean, it was one of those things that everybody was like, would do the bit where they would say, oh, this priceless. MasterCard, and it's like most people knew that reference, and so I don't know that people do anymore, and that is a thing that I feel like took enough time that you would have to answer that question for a kid if they cared at all.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that as being something you'd have to explain.
Yeah. Because I think for the most part, again, it's 20 years old. I don't feel like it feels 20 years old in general. Like I mentioned, the effects have gotten better. But also it was weirdly like the effects seemed like they should have been better for a movie that came 10 years after Jurassic Park. Because I feel like we had done such like moved forward. But maybe it's just like if it was done by ILM, then it would have been better stuff, and they didn't have that kind of money. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. It's I think that time, and this would make a great documentary series if there's any film people out there. A really great documentary series would be about that time when we switched from analog to digital. Like I've seen interviews with like Stan Winston, Phil Tippett, all these old effects guys who were starting to use CG for the first time in the early 90s. And Jurassic Park, they wanted to do all digital dinosaurs, but it didn't look good. So they went and, Stan Winston made all these amazing dinosaurs, but now you can't really do a full body shot because you have to have room for the puppeteers and stuff. And so that's where, I think Phil Tippett was the one who came in and did like a stop motion in the computer, which was a precursor to actual full keyframe animation. So like it was that perfect moment of all of these guys who were like, I don't know, let's try this. And they got Jurassic Park. And I feel like on this one, on Fantastic Four, they just jumped in and said, we're just going to do digital. Like we're just going to run with it. And it doesn't look good enough, but the director or the producers or whoever were like, you know what, we're just going to do it anyway because it's cutting edge. There were so many things at that time that were like, the gimmick was it was made in a computer, and that we wanted to see it not because it looked good, but because this is going to be the future. And I think that's where this was, like that 10-year period in there where it's like digital still isn't good, but this was only 5 years after Shrek. And Shrek looks amazing, but like Shrek was marketed as this was made in a computer the same way Toy Story was. Like all of these things was like the first thing that they're saying is this animated movie made in a computer, and it's about look at what we can do now. And I think they just kind of got swept up in that.
Whereas now the challenge is to make it look like it wasn't done in a computer, to do something and I'm constantly blown away when I see like behind the scenes or gag reels or whatever, and you get to see it, you're like, wait a minute, why wasn't that just a scene? Like, where you watch Black Widow, there was a whole gag reel about Black Widow, and they're sitting in the farmhouse eating, and like it's green screens outside the window, and I'm like, why couldn't you have just had like an outside the window? And so the challenge these days seems to be to make it look like it wasn't done by a computer, but how much stuff can you do inside a computer to make it just the way you want it to be, using it as a tool rather than a freak show, which it sounds like that's kind of what they were doing.
And that, I mean, look at what happened on Black Widow. It's some of the worst effects that have ever been put out in the modern time. So like, it doesn't always pan out. It would have looked better if you just opened the window.
Right. Let me ask you about the finale scene where the four finally become a team and they take down the evil Victor Von Doom, with this whole thing about, now Reed's going to be a leader and he's going to call it out. He's like, Johnny, go supernova. And just like Ghostbusters, where like, you said never cross the streams. You said never go supernova. And so he does that. And he's like, Sue, contain it. And, Ben, kick off that fire hydrant. And I will, for no reason, cycle the water to put this out. And we worked together as a team, even though really, again, he didn't need to do that because his superpower was already trying to figure out, let's superheat this metal and then we'll cool it off. Did you like this finale, or did it seem like they just were trying to get the time down to 2 hours?
I think they were just ending it, and I like that they superheated and then cooled. That like it was a wraparound to the science lesson of freezing Mr. Fantastic earlier in the film.
The rubber.
Yeah, like that was kind of nice, but I also it just felt gimmicky. Like in the same way now we expect a film to end with a sky beam. At that time, you kind of expect the film to end with a showdown in the street. Even as far as like the Incredible Hulk, it ends with a showdown in the street, and it's just this is where we're going to keep the fight. And the new Fantastic Four, the 2015 one, it wasn't in a street, but it was still, we're going to have this showdown right here. And they did basically the exact same thing, except without, turning him into a statue. But like all four finally learned how to work as a team together. And now we can use our powers for good. And like, it just feels forced and slapdash, but we're tired of being here and the budget's all gone. So let's finish this film.
Yeah. Agree. Let me talk about two other scenes before we get out of here. One is like Victor's got game. He takes this girl up to space, and he uses this force field area that shouldn't exist, a shield area that shouldn't exist, to like open up to show her the world because he can give her the world. That's a pretty baller move. That's like he's got some game, and I was like, all right, okay, yeah. But that whole area didn't seem like it needed to exist in the first place because like it's supposed to be a secure shielded space station. But let me go ahead and open up this shield so that I can show this to you and use this as an excuse to to propose. So
yeah,
that was
interesting.
Well,
he opened it all up because the plot wasn't going to unfold itself, so he had to do it. And if like it was little things like that, these contrivances of like, this is dumb and there's no justification other than the script says to do it.
Yeah. The other scene, and I kind of made mention to this earlier, was the scene where the Fantastic Four, the rest of them, show up on the bridge, and they need to get closer to Ben, so they need Sue to turn invisible, and so she turns invisible. And she turns invisible so that this can happen, and everybody's watching, and then she takes off her clothes, and then you hear her pushing her way through the crowd, and then Johnny picks up her clothes, and then they hand them to her on the other side. What did she actually accomplish here? Because what happened? I don't understand. Like,
she sold
what did
ticket to a young 15-year-old named Charlie. That's what she did. That's why they did this. She's responsible for that 875.
the 875 to get young Charlie into the movie theater.
Yeah.
Because again, she takes off her clothes, she pushes through the crowd, so they clearly know where she's going, and then the other two guys just meet her over to hand her clothes back. I feel like we're overlooking. Point. Yeah. All right.
There are so many things in this film that just have no point other than someone wanted to see it and they wanted to put it in the trailer. And, like if they didn't, because I remember seeing that shot of her like holding it where she starts turning back visible. She's like holding up her coat. I remember seeing that in a trailer and I was like, yes, sold. I will go see this film. I would have seen it anyway because it's Fantastic Four. So it's just like putting gravy on the gravy, but still, that was because it was right around the same time she was in Sin City too. So like the front 2/3 of my brain was occupied by Jessica Alba at that time.
Okay.
She was
Fair.
everything in the early 2000s.
Why did his girlfriend come out in this nightgown with the robe that was open? Like, that didn't make any sense either. Like, who does that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. My wife would never, like, if I called her, if she was already in her nightgown and ready to be done, and I called her to come outside, I would get a resounding no. It doesn't matter if I've turned into a rock monster or if I'm locked out of the house. The answer is still no.
Or if she did, there would be sweatpants and a sweatshirt is what would happen.
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. She would go and change first.
Yeah. I also thought this was weird that there was a welcome home banner in what looks like the hardest place to possibly put a welcome home banner. And yet, like, did she know he was, like, it seemed like he wasn't going to be gone for, I don't know. I'm asking too many questions at this point, Charlie. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop asking questions. I'm going to ask you. So the only other thing I was going to talk about this is the music, which it was so random. Like, this isn't like, there's not like an anthem to this movie. It was just all this random 2005 music that, like, Ryan Cabrera and Sum 41 and Simple Plan, and as it's fading out, and there was like some song that was playing, and I can't remember. It was called "Goodbye to You" from Breaking Point. My wife's like, "What does this song even mean?" I'm like, "I don't know." Like, it didn't seem to make any sense. It seemed like maybe 20th Century Fox was in the music business and was trying to push music, but it was Velvet Revolver and Chingy and like, what? Like, it just, and it didn't, none of it seemed to make any sense.
Maybe they were trying to appeal to a younger audience. Because like Spider-Man has one of the greatest, I mean, Danny Elfman's Spider-Man soundtrack and theme, like, that's one of the greatest movie soundtracks. John Ottman with X-Men, like, they were doing amazing superhero music at the time, and Fantastic Four just never really got it. I kind of feel the same way about the 2015 one. They didn't really have any music that I really cared about, which is why I'm so excited for the music of the new one, because it's like, finally, that sounds like Fantastic Four. Yeah. Like, I'm so excited. One of my friends worked on the film, and I'm just so excited for it, for actual Fantastic Four music that you can listen to while you're reading the comics. Because that's my thing, is like, I'll put on the soundtrack to the film to read the comic books, because Danny Elfman is Spider-Man, and Michael Giacchino's version is like, it fits. You listen to it and you're like, that sounds like a Spider-Man comic book. It's nice. We've never had that with Fantastic Four.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's the case. Again, a lot of times when we're talking about a movie, I like to talk about the music because I think the music plays a big part in it. But in this one, I don't feel like it did. I feel like it was pretty random. And so I couldn't tell if they were trying to sell me something or what. And maybe at some point I've tried to downplay in this review us talking about others other than the background of the Fantastic Four, other movies. But maybe sometime you and I could talk about the 2015, because I feel like I really want to talk about the 2015 with somebody, because I have a lot of problems with the 2015 one. But as we wrap this up, I before I ask you to give your final thought on this, is there anything we missed that you wanted to talk about? Or are you ready to recap and do that?
You haven't referenced the second movie and your amazing shirt yet. That is
Rise
a
of the Silver
super
Surfer.
Cool Silver Surfer shirt.
That's
a whole other thing. I could talk about
everything
Silver
you know
Surfer
is what he said. All that you know is about to come to an end. Is that what
will come to an end? Yeah.
All that you know has come to an end. Look at that. Look.
Yeah.
Look at that. Yes. That's
the
money right there, man.
Yeah.
That's the money right there. You know what? We could certainly talk about the sequel at some point too, but again, I just wanted to sort of, I feel like there was so much to unpack in general, kind of like we were talking about originally about the origin. Like, I wanted to give the origin of like the history of like how we got here to this one, and then what it means for the one coming up. But yeah, the Silver Surfer one is another one I think most people trash, and I was like, I didn't know it was bad till everybody told me it was. So So maybe we'll talk about that one again sometime. Maybe we'll talk about
Yeah.
that, and then the 2015 we could do stuff. We
Yeah,
could
we
we
can
could
do
talk
that.
about that stuff, or
Yeah.
maybe you and I just like hang out and get a drink, and we'll talk about all of
Yeah.
these. But
Yeah.
thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. Before we get
Thanks
to your
for
final
having me.
review, I do want to say thank you to our pack. We love our pack, the Park Adventurers Club. If you want to learn more about the community that we've put together with the Park Adventurers Club, you can go to patreon.com/Go Pack PAC, and this is a look at some of our Zebra Mezzanine and Treasure Room supporters. We appreciate all of our pack, but thank you guys so much for being members of the pack. Also, we do a show called the Park Adventurers Club every Sunday night at 8:30, so we're going to be doing that this coming Sunday night. Actually, wait a minute. We will not be having a show this Sunday night because I will be at San Diego Comic-Con. So this one Sunday, we won't have one, but I will probably be doing a live stream from San Diego Comic-Con. So there'll be some content, but most Sundays we talk about park stuff on Sunday nights at 8:30, and then you can come right back here Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. and we'll have another movie review for you. But Charlie, now is the time. Now is the best time. Now is when we go to you, and somebody's looking through and they're getting ready to go see the new Fantastic Four movie, and they're like, "Hey, I saw on Disney Plus there's this Fantastic Four movie from 2005." The question that I have to you: would you recommend this movie?
Yes, I would recommend it. It's a nice primer. It gives you the basics of what each of the characters are, what their power set is, and the basic dynamics of how they work together and play together. But also, if you're about to go and see the new movie, I would recommend reading the comic books as well. Like Rob said, Marvel Unlimited. You can just jump on and dive into some of the really old issues, or even the more recent stuff. There's a lot going on with the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom in the comics right now. So I think there's so much mythology to unpack that any little bit you can get is going to be helpful.
Okay. Well, and I was just, as you were saying that, I was looking up the Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
You can check out. They're pushing Ironheart right now. I thought for sure I was going to pull this up and I was going to see that they were going to be talking about Fantastic Four. But yeah, it's definitely a very cool thing. So for me, I would recommend this movie, but I never knew that there was a problem with this movie because as I mentioned, this was my favorite cast for Fantastic Four. I have a lot of problems with the 2015 one, which we could talk about at another time. But for this one, I think it's a fun movie. I went back and rewatched it. It's one that I don't mind going back and rewatching over and over again. I think it's a fun little movie. It's really neat to see Chris Evans in this role versus the role that he has as Captain America. And both of them are Marvel, but this one predates the MCU. So it was funny to me that they would take somebody who was such a big deal in these movies and then make him a big deal in the MCU too. So I don't know. I would recommend this movie, but let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to get feedback from you. Thank you for being here, for watching. And Charlie, thanks for doing this, man. It's a lot of fun, and I appreciate you bringing
Thanks
your
for having me.
expertise to this. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.